Just want to take you very quickly, in fact, to Turkey. Hopefully we can show you these images which are just coming into us of Volodymyr Zelensky, whose plane has just landed in Turkey at the NATO summit. I can see him just walking along there we go, there's Volodymyr Zelensky arriving at the NATO summit. Of course, Emmanuel Macron is due to head there later on. And of course, what's happened in Damascus presumably will be on the mind of those NATO leaders. I mean, of course, the main thrust, if you like, of that NATO summit is going to be all about Ukraine, but also, of course, the Middle East and Syria, presumably as well, very much part of those discussions which are due to kick off this evening.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not so much NATO, but Turkey. Turkey is extremely involved in Syria, extremely involved in the fact that Ahmed Al-Sharaa is today Syria's ruler. He has been backed by Turkey, and so obviously Turkey has a direct interest. I'm sure the Turkish president will have a talk with the French president about this, even though their personal relationship has not been that great in recent years. But yes, this is going to be an issue. It's not central to NATO. Obviously, Ukraine, Russia, Donald Trump will take center stage. But yes, this will be on the minds of the Turks, who are watching very, very carefully what's happening in Syria. So yes, we'll probably have
and also, let's remember that when Emmanuel Macron goes to Syria, of course he's representing France, but the Élysée Palace keeps on telling us he's also defending EU interests. He's also there as a kind of representative of Europe, not official, but he goes there. He talks to the Syrian president, and of course the information will also be relayed to the Germans, other EU nations, because France alone is not as strong as Europe, obviously, on many levels, even though this is the French president visiting Syria and not Ursula von der Leyen or some EU representative. So, of course, when he goes to Ankara, he will be talking to EU leaders about the situation in Syria, about what he discussed. Or maybe not directly Emmanuel Macron, but his key diplomatic advisor, Emmanuel Beaune, who we saw on the pictures in that presidential palace, will be talking to his counterparts, Germans, Italians, Spanish, and so on. A point also to mention in the bilateral meeting that's probably taking place as we speak now, we're not really sure of the timing given the two explosions and if things have changed or not. But in the bilateral meeting with Ahmed Al-Sharaa, Emmanuel Macron's going to have to talk about the Kurds also. He's going to have to talk about respecting the Kurdish populations in Syria. The Kurds who fought alongside EU or Western forces against the Islamic State group, the so-called Islamic State organization. He's going to have to talk about the Kurds, because that's also a way to try to get unity, try to make sure that allies of the past are not left out in the new Syria. We're talking about the Islamic State. We don't have information as to who committed those two bomb attacks in Damascus, but some observers might be pointing today to Islamic State organization or what's left of it in Syria. But surely the Syrian forces are already looking for people, looking for who has committed these two bomb attacks in Syria, in Damascus, in the heart of the Syrian capital, just opposite the hotel, the Four Seasons, where Emmanuel Macron is staying.
I mean, of course, it's going to be what you're talking about there, Clovis, very much the challenges, I suppose, now for President Ahmed Al-Sharaa. And there's been very much amongst Western countries, not just France, is it, Marc? We've had, of course, Ahmed Al-Sharaa himself went to the White House to see Donald Trump. Volodymyr Zelensky actually went to Damascus as well to see Ahmed Al-Sharaa as well. There's been very much a Western trying to ensure, I suppose, that he is supported, to see if he can be that central figure which will bring the Syrian population together.
Absolutely. Donald Trump, among others, he praised on Ahmed Al-Sharaa, calling him a tough guy, not necessarily a nice guy, but a tough guy. Donald Trump likes those kinds of rulers. And also, a few weeks ago, he started raising an idea that has rung alarm bells in France and in other European and Middle Eastern capitals. That is, he said, well, Hezbollah in Lebanon is a problem. Israel cannot really handle it, but I know a person who can handle it. His name is Ahmed Al-Sharaa. I'd like the Syrians to deal with Hezbollah. They know how to deal with them. We know that obviously the Bashar al-Assad regime was a key ally of Hezbollah, a key conduit for weapons and so on going into Lebanon. And the French and other Europeans have said, wait a second, this is absolutely not a good idea. We don't want Syria in Lebanon. Syria has a heavy history, if I may use the expression, in Lebanon, stayed there for decades. And the idea of having Ahmed al-Sharaa deal, quote unquote, with Hezbollah was something that the French president wanted to make sure that it doesn't happen. So that's probably one of the things they'll be discussing in addition to the Kurds and also the other minorities. There have been clashes with the Alawites, Christians, and so on. So Syria is clearly not a safe place, but it's a safe bet to say that given what happened this morning, this double bombing in the heart of Damascus, what happened last Thursday, a bombing in the heart of Damascus claiming 9 lives, that Ahmed al-Sharaa already has a lot on his hands in Syria, and he's not going to think about Lebanon and dealing with Hezbollah because he has now a key security problem. He cannot ignore it anymore. He cannot just say, oh, those are just remnants. Obviously, this might just be symbolic, but if an organization is able to strike twice today and twice within a week in the heart of the capital that you're supposed to control, it means you have a security problem. There's no way around it. If they speak at the press conference, they'll probably find arguments to say, we don't know, we'll have to see, it's maybe not that important, but don't listen to it. There is a security problem in Syria. It's front and center, and that's the message that was conveyed by the attackers. We don't know who they are, but clearly they exist.